Premed office hours for May 14th, 2025. We are live and in charge of all of this craziness. Hello, Dr. Scott.
Hello, Dr. Ryan Gray. I made it. Yeah.
Yes. Dr. Scott Wright, former director of admissions at UT Southwestern, retired executive director of TMDSAS. The platform that we use to go live on for this craziness, they changed some settings, and now we have to figure out, do we stay with them or do we go somewhere else, because they're messing with our mojo. But we made it. We're here. Those who don't know, I'm Dr. Ryan Gray, founder of Medical School Headquarters Mapped, author of the Premed Playbook series, host of the Premed Years podcast. What else do I do, Scott? I do a couple other things here.
Just a few.
I try.
You're a revered father.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about revered. I don't know what that means, but we'll go with that. But the number one thing that we are trying to do is we are trying to make this crazy process of getting into medical school easier for everyone involved. And we do that through all of the hopefully amazing free content that we do, including Premed office hours. With that in mind, would love for all of you to ask your questions. Dr. Scott Wright, TMDSAS just opened for submission.
Yes.
No, opens tomorrow.
It's tomorrow.
It's tomorrow.
Tomorrow, the 15th.
Let's ask the question that everyone has, right? Does a student have to submit their application on day one to TMDSAS to be considered early or to have a chance?
You have to do it within the first 3 hours, though. That's the key. That's
3
the key.
hours? I thought it was 3 minutes.
No, you got 3 hours. No, seriously. In all seriousness, no, you do not have to submit it the first day or even the first week, or even really the first month. I think you're fine as long as you get it in a reasonable time period between the 15th of May and, let's say, the end of June. Mid to end of June, you're gonna be just fine. Don't relax. Relax.
Don't relax.
Yeah,
right. No, relax. Yeah.
Whoa, that's not relaxing.
Get bright. Yeah, it's set up for 3 videos, but it's just the 2 of us today. So it is what it is. All right. Yeah, I think especially TMDSAS opening tomorrow for submission. No need to submit day one. Same thing with AMCAS. The students that we're working with right now are all freaking out. So like, I can't get in an appointment, and I need to submit May 27th. I'm like, no, you do not need to submit May 27th. You do not.
It's a self-imposed deadline that is not logical.
And I think it's gotten crazier over the last probably 2 or 3 years, where this first day thing, like it used to be like, hey, first week, now it's first day or else. I'm like, stop it, people. We're trying our best to ease some concerns here. Eric has a question. What do medical schools think about philosophy majors? I am very passionate about it. Also can incorporate it as part of my personal narrative if it influenced my MD path. Thanks. Scott, do the medical schools ponder the pondering things?
I think yes. They do ponder those types of things. And actually, Eric, they are interested in people from all kinds of different majors, because it brings a different perspective to the class. I've had some philosophy majors. I have some religion majors this year. I've had history majors, and just the gamut of things. And I think every one of them brings a different lens by which to view this journey that they're on. And so I think absolutely you can do really some nice things in a personal statement if you want to talk about how that influenced your journey You don't want it can't come across as a philosophy paper. You
Yeah.
don't want it to sound like that, but
Yeah. Don't do that. Yeah, major doesn't matter, friends. Your major doesn't matter. And more importantly, right, to your point, Scott, the idea of it shouldn't sound like a philosophy paper. You also don't need to lean into your major as some amazing thing that's going to set you apart and go, oh, because I'm a philosophy major, I think differently than all of the other students. I'm like, you sat in some classrooms and you studied some textbooks. That doesn't give you the experience of being a philosopher. So I think that's also something that students try to make bigger.
overemphasize. Yes.
Yeah, overemphasize. That's a good word. That's a much better word than make bigger. Bigly.
Well,
Yeah.
I was a humanities major in college, so there you go.
There you go. All right. My English no so bueno. All right. For DO schools, by what date should I submit my primary to be within the first verified batch sent to schools? So project species, this whole verified batch sent to schools, that doesn't exist in the DO world. So nothing to worry about. So for those who don't know, we'll dig a little bit deeper into this. The MD AMCAS application, they can, students submit applications for this cycle May 27th. Medical schools don't get applications until June 27th. That is the first date that medical schools have access to applications. Here is a caveat that most students don't know, and it's not talked about, just this one little caveat. Notice how I said June 27th is the first date that medical schools have access to applications. I'm leaving out the word verified because schools choose whether or not they want to wait for the application to be verified or not. That is a setting set by the school as a signal to AMCAS. Hey, I don't care if the application is verified. If a student has submitted an application and they're applying to my school, I want to know so I can send them a secondary. The application does not have to be verified for a school to send you a secondary. So just one caveat to that. You don't have to be in that first wave of applications for AMCAS to be considered early to get a secondary. Schools go in on a regular cadence and pull new applications. They don't just do it once and go, okay, we're done, right? If you didn't submit and you're not verified in that first wave on June 27th, then you're late. Sorry. No luck. TMDSAS, very different, right, Scott? Right. They open tomorrow for submission. The verification process, very different, much shorter, more along the lines of residency verification, not coursework verification. There's no set date that schools start to have access to applications, is there?
No, I don't think so. I think that, however, I do think that, it's always good to keep in mind that most of these admissions offices are trying to bring in their current class, trying to solidify and bring in the current class and make sure everybody's there and all the stuff. So until that happens, they're not doing a whole lot with the new cycle. They're sitting on it.
They're sitting on it. For DO schools, it opened May 5th or whatever that date was. You could submit it that same date. The verification process is just a couple days. Schools get the information immediately. Schools actually start to get information even before you submit your application, which is a weird change they made last year, 2 years ago, whenever that was. So no worries about verification timelines and first wave for DO schools. Miles, post-bac nurse currently. You're a nurse who's in a post-bac program, or are you in a post-bac program for nursing? Miles, I'm confused here. Thoughts on working during gap year at a top 5 hospital, doesn't matter what hospital it's tied to, with a, quote, big stretch medical school. every school is a big stretch, versus a small community hospital where I likely can interact better with docs, pros and cons. Scott Miles is playing the prestige game with his question and thought process, or they're playing. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're caught in this sort of, ooh, I want to go to this medical school because it's the top 5 or 10 or whatever medical school. The same thing you're doing here, Miles, with the hospital that you're working at, top 5. Who's making that call, and I don't know, big stretch medical school. All
U.S.
of this
News is making that call.
Yeah, I mean, all of this is just seeping with kind of like this kind of idea of the hierarchy, of things, and I don't think it's, Miles. I don't think that it is based on all that. I think you do what you want to do based on other factors beyond these factors that you're mentioning. You want to look at where you're going to get paid the most, where you're going to, is there the living arrangement, support networks and stuff, is that all going to be good? And those are the things you want to be thinking about in terms of where you want to work during the gap year, not necessarily what U.S. News and World Report says.
Yeah.
It's a long way to say, no, I don't like that.
Yeah. Do what you want, and what's in your best interest, what you think you would enjoy the most. I do think the ability to network is a huge factor in that conversation and the decision making, above and beyond reputation of a hospital or a med school or anything like that. Dawa, given that I will reapply, how much of my writing should change? Also, given that different advisors told me different things, that my writing wasn't the issue last cycle. Yeah, Scott, even if the writing was perfect, I think students are new people in a new year, and they should massage appropriately based on new life experiences, new ways to process information, all that kind of stuff.
Yep, I agree completely.
Yeah. I had a conversation yesterday with I'll leave that question up because it's kind of related. I had a conversation yesterday with a student who was asking questions based on being a reapplicant and whether or not a school will look at the application side by side and look at the personal statement side by side. And it was very interesting because we got to a different place with the question where they were more concerned about it, not just the comparison of like, are they going to be mad that I just copied and pasted my application or my personal statement that's different?
Right.
But specifically for this student, there was something in their personal statement that we generally say, let's avoid throwing physicians under the bus, right? Yes, there are bad experiences in healthcare, but and there are ways to talk about it on the application, but let's not single out the physician and say, the physician sucked and I'm going to prove that I can do better. It's a very common tactic that students will take.
Right.
And so they were concerned that that's how they wrote their personal statement last time, and they're going to do it differently this time. Will their old personal statement be held against them? And I'm like, don't worry about that. Right. Could they look at it? Sure. Maybe they could. Right. But will they? No.
Yeah,
and you're allowed to have growth. And hey, your personal statement got better.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, that's unfortunate. If their past personal statement did say stuff like that, that's unfortunate in my view. So.
Yes. All right. Keep coming. Dara Lee, for the planned section in TMDSAS, would you recommend writing a new description for my hobbies? Love this. This came up in Academy recently. TMDSAS, for those who don't know, they do things a little bit different. Instead of categories that you label activities to, activities are assigned to sections, and the section is basically the category. And TMDSAS will tell you if one of your activities straddles two different sections, put it in both sections. And so students will then ask, what do I write about? Do I just copy and paste everything? My description's over the same. And then same thing for future activities. If you're also doing that thing in the future, right, you're planning to do it continually, do I write the same thing? How do I change my writing? Scott, why does TMDSAS do it this way? And what recommendation do you have for students?
Well, okay, so number one is I don't know. I don't know why, and that's a legacy thing from long ago. So I don't know exactly. It has to do with the way the coding has been produced for the computer system that handles all of it. Anyway, that's all I know about that. Now, having said that, what I would say is that whether you copy and paste it or whether you put something new, I think it probably doesn't matter that much in terms of what it's going to mean in the application. I've seen students do it both ways. I think there's justification for doing it both ways. I would probably see it as a more conservative choice to put new stuff. I mean, it's real estate that you have available to you to do other things with. So I'd say conservatively, you would put new stuff in those categories, dearly. But we're just talking about a small, not much, 300 characters, and so I don't think that's a whole lot. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
All right. Love this question from FC Barca. Should I mention YDO explicitly in my ACOMAS personal statement? So we don't have Courtney or Kristen on with us today, both former directors of admissions at DO schools. I will tell you my stance on this, and my stance is no. The personal statement length for the DO application used to be 4,700 characters, I think. 47? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. TMDSAS has been 5,000 forever, and AMCAS has been 5,300 forever. Several years ago, ACOMA said, hey, we're changing the length of our personal statement. And they changed the length, not to 5,000, not to 51.
Drum roll. What is
it? They changed it to 5,300. And the rationale in my brain for 5,300 is they were basically giving up and saying, just copy and paste your personal statement over. You do not need to change everywhere where you said physician in your personal statement to osteopathic physician. Everywhere where you said medicine to osteopathic medicine. Everywhere where you said medical school to osteopathic medical school. Just copy and paste the same essay. Yeah. The essay is still, why do you want to be a doctor? Yeah. And yes, I think their prompt does specifically mention some osteopathic stuff. Ignore it. The schools will ask in secondary essays, if they want to ask, why do you want to be a DO, or why are you drawn to osteopathic medicine? Yeah. So that is my thought.
I agree completely with your thought.
Thank you for the drum roll.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Voidbot, I'm a non-trad student going back to school after 8 years being dropout. What's the most important thing to focus on? My plan is to finish all prereqs and take the MCAT the spring of 2027. Interesting. Scott, let's assume, and Voidbot, you can comment if you want. Let's assume they dropped out because their academics weren't good.
Right.
What should they focus on?
Academics.
Easy, right?
Yeah, right.
Work on being a good student.
Yeah, yeah. Focus on the classes, the coursework, getting it, and you can focus on. You can also integrate into that focus MCAT prep stuff, because if you're going back to take, organic or general chemistry, then you can, look at the study materials for organic chemistry from any of their companies and say, what do they say I need to know from general chemistry, and look, am I studying that in this class?
Yep.
Track along with that. And so that as you're taking the classes, you're doing some MCAT prep at the same time. That's my recommendation. So.
Yeah. And right on top of all of the academics, you still have to be a pre-med and get some clinical experience and get some shadowing and community service and dabble in some research and all of it, right? So what should you focus on? It's all of it, unfortunately. I think often we find that students try to pick and choose what they want to focus on when. And in medical school, you don't have that luxury. Medical school, it comes at you fast and hard, and you're doing it all again. You're doing community service. You're getting clinical experience. You're doing some research. You're shadowing physicians because you're interested in exploring specialties. And you're even more intensely doing coursework and taking tests and all of that good stuff. So you got to do it all. Pierce, how should I approach the non-traditional applicant essay for TMDSAS? I am on my second gap year working as a full-time MA. Haven't really changed careers, military, etc. Yeah, Scott, any advice? So non-trad, not a super non-trad, but just someone who's taken some gap years.
Yeah. Well, so how should I approach the non-trad essay? Well, I think they intentionally leave that essay pretty broad. And it's basically, if you consider yourself a non-traditional student, tell us why. Mm-hmm. That's basically the question. And so what I would say, Pierce, is that it's really an issue of kind of you defining for them what you consider non-trad in your case. Taking 2 gap years is what I'm guessing you would say about that, and then go into in deeper about why things have unfolded the way they have, and then that leads you into some watering events, etc., to talk about in your application in the personal statement. So yeah.
Awesome. Tiara, no acceptances, but I'm on 5 wait lists and have already sent 2 letters of intent to my top school. Don't seem I'll get in. Should I send letters to other schools also? 2 letters of intent to 1 school or to 2 schools?
It sounds like 1 school.
It sounds like 1 school, the way that it says to my top school, not top school. So just point of clarification, right? Letter of intent ideally should only be sent to 1 school, so we don't ruin the letter of intent game for other students in the future. If students are sending letters of intent to lots of schools, basically saying, if you accept me, I will come. It's not a binding legal document, but you're saying, hey, like, accept me, I'll come to your school. And then you don't go to their school when they accept you. They're just not going to take letters of intent seriously anymore. Tiara does say 1 school. Yeah. So right off the bat, only send 1 letter of intent to 1 school as well. Yeah. Should I send letters to other schools? I wouldn't, right? Because you sent a letter of intent to the school. They have not outright rejected you. I wouldn't send letters of intent to other schools.
Yeah, that's the ethical thing to do.
Yeah. Good luck. Fingers crossed. Toes crossed. All the things crossed. Right. Get in. All right. Dennis, I work at the YMCA during the summer as a swim instructor. Is this considered community service? No. You're working there. You're getting paid. It's a job. Yeah. Marvin. Reminds me of Back to the Future. Like Marvin when he's playing the guitar at the dance back in the day.
Oh, right.
And the guys are like, what is this? You gotta listen to this. Anyway, how do you answer the why not PA or nursing interview question? I've watched that recently because my kids got into Back to the Future. So
yeah, it's fun. It's a fun movie. Yeah.
They also got into Jurassic Park and all of those movies, so that was fun.
Nice.
Yeah. Scott, this comes up a lot in personal statements where students will start to work this in. And most of the time it's super generic and leads to students focusing on leadership. I want to lead a team, and that's how I'm going to differentiate myself. Or I want the broadest amount of knowledge, and that's how I'm going to say. And so most of it's pretty cliche.
Yes, I agree.
I generally don't recommend approaching it in the personal statement at all.
I agree.
I don't think I've ever seen a secondary essay that focuses on this question. But what happens? Go ahead.
And I don't think it comes up very often in an interview either, not of that specificity. Now, if something came up that led the interviewer down that path, you know, maybe the student mentioned something about, I had a friend that went to PA school and I thought about that for a while.
Yeah. The parent, the PA or something.
Yeah, something like that. But outside of that, I think it's pretty unusual, I would say.
Yeah, I personally don't think it's a good interview question because ultimately it's really hard to answer the question. And there's only a few answers that are valid. And so I don't understand. But to be prepared for it, I think the answer is always the authentic answer for you specifically is the answer. Did you explore PA? Did you explore NP? What was it about going to medical school that drew you there and instead? So authenticity rules always.
Absolutely. I was just thinking about, boy, when you enter the world of medicine, you enter a world of acronyms.
Yes.
Right?
NP, PA, MCAT, accommodations, TMDSAS.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, whoa.
Yeah. And not just acronyms, because TMDSAS is not an acronym. Did you know that?
It is an acronym.
It is not an acronym.
It is.
It is not.
Now, what do you mean by that?
I'm gonna learn you something today, Dr. Scott. Right? All right, you ready?
Okay. Yes.
So there is a broad world everyone can learn. In the comments, do you know the answer to this? I want to see if people know. If TMDSAS is not an acronym, what is it?
It's a trademark.
No. So in the broad world of acronyms, an acronym is a specialized abbreviation. Okay. The specialized version of the abbreviation of an acronym by definition is a word that you say that is the abbreviation. So AMCAS, Marvin knows the answer. AMCAS is an acronym because you say it as a word. NASA is an acronym because you say it as a word. FBI is not an acronym because you don't say it as a word. You don't call it FIBI.
Oh, wow. That's super interesting.
So what you call those versions of abbreviations are initialisms. You say each letter as an individual letter.
I could say something right now, but I'm not going to say it.
So I didn't learn this until Airman Powell, who was my my flight medicine tech in the Air Force. Airman Powell corrected me when I was a flight surgeon. He was my airman. He's like, Dr. Gray, you know that's not an acronym. I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? Everything's an acronym, right? So we in our language use acronym basically in replace of abbreviation when that's not correct.
Yeah.
So TMDSAS is an abbreviation, but it's an initialism version of an abbreviation. So yes, Ariana, it could be a CARS passage, which is an acronym because we don't say CARS.
Oh, that's a good idea, Ariana. Yeah.
There you go. Now you've all learned something.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
So a more appropriate, a more linguistically correct version of what you said is when you enter medicine, you enter a world of abbreviations.
And interestingly enough, of geeks.
Is that what you were gonna say?
Yeah.
I can't hold it in anymore. You're a geek. I prefer nerd, but I'll take it. Yes, I own up to it. Yes, and so in that Cars passage, when Reverend Dr. James Scott Wright called Dr. Gray a geek, what was the tone that he had displayed in that?
Which of the following sentences would he agree with? The tone would agree with.
Yes. Love it.
Yeah.
All right. Katie, and when it comes to Preview and Casper exams, are those things that we should prioritize for the primary app, or is it something we can submit after? Like, how can we for the MCAT? Or like how we can for the MCAT. Yeah, so Preview and Casper, not part of the primary application. You can do them after. And our general kind of timeline is, hey, just think of them as a secondary essay kind of process. Taking them May, June, July, perfectly fine. Yosef, in the middle of applying for extra time accommodation for the MCAT, good luck. That is a horrendous process. They just told me they need more information from me, which typically means you got to go back to the doctors and spend more money. I'm trying to figure out to practice my full lengths with regular or 1.5x times. Yosef, I don't have a great answer for you. Petros, who's our MCAT expert, isn't on with us today. My first question, Yosef, is did you get accommodations in college? This is something I learned recently when I was at the AAMC meeting. The AAMC, I think, and I'm going to get in trouble from my friends who are still affiliated with the AAMC. The AAMC, I think, illegally, very anti-Americans with Disabilities Act illegally, does not give accommodations to people who did not get accommodations in college. So if after college you're diagnosed with ADHD, you're diagnosed with dyslexia, you're diagnosed with X, Y, or Z that requires you to have accommodations. And I don't know how they do this, Scott, because it was a very clear blanket statement that we do not offer accommodations. What if you now all of a sudden have diabetes and you need to monitor blood sugars, whatever, and you need extra time? Like, they just blanket statement, if you didn't get accommodations in college, you're not getting accommodations for the MCAT. And to me, that's illegal. But who am I? So yeah.
No, I agree with you. I think it's a screwy way that they do a lot of different things, in fact.
a lot of different things. So Yosef, I don't have the perfect answer for you. If you had accommodations in college, I would expect you to be able to get accommodations for the MCAT. You're just going to have to jump through a lot of hoops to be able to do it. And your timeline for applying to medical school may be affected by getting those accommodations. Good luck. Voidbot's back. As a full-time software engineer, part-time student, how do I make the most of the limited time I have to demonstrate I'm serious about medical school? What clinical experience would you recommend? So this is a student that took the 8-year gap and is going back now. We see this a lot with non-trad, Scott. They're working full-time. They're also doing all the other things. Voidbot, there's a good podcast episode. Let me find it. David was his name. Let me see. Very similar situation. He was a software engineer who was working full-time, and it's episode 330. So go check that out. Episode 330 of the Premed years. I'll put a link here. Very similar situation. Had a family, works full-time as a software person, software engineer. Actually, surprisingly, it was interesting. He was working on software for physical therapy practices. So it's like medical records, patient tracking stuff for physical therapy practices. did almost all of his prereqs, all of his stuff at community college, which everyone told him, oh, you can't do that, right? Got into several schools, and he's probably a resident now at this point. This was a while ago.
That is we should have a lot of students that would ask the question, can I work during medical school? And the only situations I know of where somebody can do that is if they can code, if they can do coding work at like weird hours and
get into their flow state at 3 a.m.
Yeah. But I mean, in that case, it's really so specialized. But that in that small case, I think it's possible.
Yeah, working during medical school is an interesting one because I did it. I don't recommend it. And some medical schools don't allow you to based on their student handbook. So we got to be careful with that. But yeah, VoidBot, you just need to carve out as much time as you have to the things that you need to do. So. Brian, how should the number of hours and the subdividing between clinical, non-clinical volunteer hours look for the MCAS application? What should be considered adequate and or competitive? Scott, this is an impossible question to answer. Right?
I was just thinking.
Students are looking for, tell me what to do, tell me how to do it, and I will do that. And there's no formula.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want there to be a formula. Students are often mad at that answer, but I don't think there should be a formula because I want physicians, I want medical students to all be different and have different reasons for what lights up their life and what they prioritize in their life and the experiences that they have and all this stuff. And that's what medical schools want as well.
That's right.
So I don't think you should be looking for what do the medical schools want, which is basically what this question is asking. And go out and do what you want to do while understanding that, yes, you are applying to medical school. And yes, you should prove to yourself that you want to be a doctor. And you do that by getting clinical experience. You do that by getting shadowing. And if you theoretically want to be a physician and go to medical school, the assumption is you're going to do that consistently. And not just go get some hours and be like, okay, I'm done. I got the hours. So it's but the total number of hours I don't think is anything set in stone. And do schools have cutoffs? Sure. Do they publish those cutoffs? Most likely not. But it's going to be different at every school. Oh, I love this question. Robert, I love it. Is it okay to combine your normal activity description and most meaningful activity description for one longer story? So some background for this for everyone, Scott. On MCAS and TMDSAS does allow for a non-traditional, or not a non-traditional, a most meaningful activity. It's different on TMDSAS because it's separate, and so I don't think this thought process comes the same way as it does for AMCAS. In AMCAS, you can mark up to 3 of your activities as most meaningful. At least one has to be marked as most meaningful, which I don't really understand, but they require at least one of them has to be marked most meaningful.
The programmer said it has to be one.
Yeah, no, like literally, they literally say, unless they've changed it, right? It changes every year. Historically, if you have one activity, at least one activity has to be marked as most meaningful. So it's strange, but anyway, when you mark an activity as most meaningful, you get a separate 1,325 character text box that opens up and you're allowed to type in there. And what we see are a couple different things. We see some students completely ignore the 700 character description and just fill in the most meaningful essay. They're like, oh, this is a most meaningful. I don't have to do the top part, right? That's not right. We'll see some students do them separately, where it's the 700 character description, 1,325 character most meaningful. And then we'll see some students do one long thing it's two boxes, but they do like a tweet where it's like 1 of 2 and then 2 of 2 when they're filling it in. What are your thoughts on the one long essay, Scott?
Not a fan.
Not a fan.
Not a fan of that. I think it doesn't flow with how I think most admissions committee members are used to reading it, and so that you run into, and then they're confused about, oh wait, this just ended. Oh, now I see it's down here again, and it's just awkward, I think, for the reader, because I've been conditioned to expect it otherwise.
Yeah, and they're different, right? They're different things. One is the description, and it's like, tell me about this activity. And then the most meaningful 1,325 characters that opens up is a most meaningful essay. Why is this most meaningful to you?
Right. That's the part that's the most frustrating to me when I read these things is you read it and you think, I still don't know why this is most meaningful to you.
Correct.
I get you're not helping me here.
Yep.
So. Yep.
Yeah. So no, don't do it as one.
Yeah.
JD Veg with only 700 characters and 6 publications. Holy moly, dude. I hope you have some clinical experience to go along with that. How should I cite them for my publications activity description? With full citations, I'm way over the limit. Yeah, you just make it work. You don't need to follow the specific guidelines for citing your publications. Just put the titles in there, probably is the easiest thing. Yeah. They can figure it out. There's you don't need hyperlinks, you don't need URLs. Like there's nobody's going to go and look at all of these. So just do what you need. And yes, between 100 and 150 clinical hours, so lower in hospice right now. So working on it. Good job. Keep going. Dr. Scott writes, what is the worst application you've ever read? Don't say mine, because I didn't apply to TMDSAS schools.
The worst? Oh, yeah. I read an application one time. Poor guy. Oh, my gosh. This guy, the entire application, I kid you not, was typed in all capital letters.
So they were like 50.
The whole personal statement was all caps.
Oh,
everything in the whole application was all caps.
Wow.
It was like, I want to be a doctor.
There was one time I was working with a patient. Oh no.
Yeah, that was poor guy. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, like what do you do in that situation? Do you give any grace to be like, this person just doesn't know typing etiquette, or you just think this is person who's just completely disconnected with the world?
Yeah, having known the social backstory for that one, it was definitely the latter.
Okay,
they're not on the same wavelength.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
I have family members that like text in all caps. I'm like, stop! Like, you're old. Stop.
Thank God I'm not that old yet.
Yeah. See, it's not always good to stand out and be memorable. No, it isn't.
Right. Exactly.
It is not. DT, how should I categorize being a caretaker for a family member on AMCAS? Other or community service volunteer or medical clinical? Yeah, it is clinical experience if you're being a caretaker for them. So I would do that.
Yep, I would too.
In fact, I often will use the WMC in a good light this way. They have had a post on their website of like 5 ways to get clinical experience, and being a caretaker for a family member was listed as one of them. So I'm like, hey, the WMC says being a caretaker is clinical.
Yeah.
Go for it.
That's great.
Jonathan, should we talk about GPA issues that occurred during our undergrad years in the quote other impactful experiences, or in our personal statement, or both? Or neither.
Or neither.
I'll add one other option. Oh, or D, none of the above.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the one I was gonna choose.
Yeah. So Scott, here's my take on this. GPA issues come in a variety of different flavors. The most common GPA issue we see is one that's been resolved, where a student struggled and they've either their last couple of years of undergrad, maybe they just struggled freshman year, last couple of years of undergrad, or maybe they did post-bac or SMP work or master's work, and they have a strong upward trend. Their last couple of years are solid, 3.7, 3.8, 3.9, whatever. And so they've proven academically that they can handle themselves. Yeah. To me, you don't need to mention anything.
Correct.
Because your grades, your transcript is doing the speaking for yourself.
Yeah.
Right? There may be a secondary essay that says, tell me about classes that you've gotten grades less than X, Y, or Z. You'll need to bring it up there if you've struggled. The other flavor of that is a student that's never proven themselves, and they have a 2.8, they have a 2.9, they have a 3.2, and they just are consistently at that level. And then they want to use their personal statement. They want to use their other impactful experiences essay as an excuse, right? Because you haven't proven yourself. So in my mind, it's an excuse as to why you struggle academically. And you're basically saying, hey, trust me, bro, right? I'm going to do better in medical school once I'm in medical school, which 99.9% of the people reading that will just completely ignore you. Because if you struggled in undergrad and haven't proven yourself, you're gonna struggle in medical school because it's harder. Thoughts?
No, I agree completely with all that. I mean, it's just it's one of those things where on the one hand, you don't want to, if the GPA is an issue, you don't want to plant your flag there and wave it around and stuff and say, hey, I want to talk more about this issue right here.
Look at all my dirty laundry.
I just don't think there's value in that. Yeah. I think that's where the secondary questions, if the school is interested in that, secondary questions is where that's going to come up.
Okay. Yep. And at the end of the day, it's your application. Do as you will.
Yeah.
Should we explain a W in a non-science class? No, you do not need to explain a W. Couple of questions about W's. W's are not an issue.
Unless you have like 3 W's every semester.
Yeah. Where if there's a pattern there.
Yeah.
Eric, here's a ACOMAS question. And ACOMAS, is that an acronym, Scott?
That would be an acronym.
It would be an acronym. You say it as a word, right?
Yeah. I think you're so smart, don't you?
No, I'm not so smart. I learned it, and now I'm passing on learning to others.
I'm glad you are. I feel richer for having known this fact.
Good. And now you're gonna catch someone else doing it. You'll be like,
yeah.
Ha-ha!
I'll be like, aha! Yes.
Did you know, my friend?
Tell you something right now, sir.
Wait, let's jump on a YouTube live so I can call you out on a live. Yes. Regarding hour breakdown on ACOMAS, it has you do an average per week. I don't understand why. Will they know for some activities that my hours were spent significantly at one time and then less so currently? No. Yeah, I don't understand this question on ACOMAS. And I don't think there's good clarification in their handbook either of if most of your hours that you've gathered were front loaded, for instance, then your average per week should be what's more realistic and ignore the front loaded part. They don't give you that clarification. And so what I think almost everyone does is take the total hours, divide by the number of weeks that you've done it, and there's my average hours per week. The software could do that. Like, why are you making me put that in there if you're also not giving me extra instructions to let you know really what was a real average week? If my real average week was 2, but during one summer, it was my full-time job, and so it was 40, and so my hours are really bulked up because of that. But you really want to know my average really was 2. They don't give you that explanation as far as I know. So I don't know. Teo, well, and I think last question here. I have a 4.0 in community college and then a 3.5, 3.67 at UC Berkeley because of COVID makes me almost homeless. I did use school COVID policy for pass, no pass, and course reduction. Is it a red flag if I mention it in the impact essay? Mention what? The pass, no pass? I mean, that's what everyone did for COVID policies. Being almost homeless, I think, that is another impactful essay discussion, I think, right, Scott? Because that adds context to the application.
I don't know how to interpret a lot of this stuff. Is it homeless or is it hopeless? Or is it the same thing?
No, I think homeless.
I don't know.
So obviously, I'm assuming financial stress with COVID, lost a job or something.
Yeah,
I think there's some explanation there. There's some context that can be added.
Yeah, I agree with that. Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah. All right, friends. We'll end there. Another awesome pre-med office hours. As a reminder, we're here almost every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, answering your pre-med questions, MCAT questions, whatever you may have. So come back and check us out every week. Head over to medicalschoolhq.net as well. Check out all of our free resources, podcasts, YouTube videos, all that good stuff. And if you're looking for some help with your essays or interview prep, we do that. Check it out. We do. Dr. Scott Wright, thanks for hanging out today.
Thanks for hanging out with me too, Dr. Ryan. Right.
Everyone have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.